Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Peter Schrappen, the co-host of the SS Seattle Boat Show Live, brought to you by the Waggoner Cruising Guide, which is edited and published by Mark Bunzel, and also on that team are the Landons. Hi, Landons. Hi, Mark Bunzel.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah.
Well, the Landons are on location, out doing their thing in their natural habitat. Where are you right now, Landons?
We are in Ketchikan, and the sun is shining, the skies are blue, and it's actually quite warm. So it's a good time so far. Yep.
That is
Beautiful.
great to hear. Excellent. Have you seen any whales?
We saw one whale actually through in BC waters as we were headed up, and it was a gray whale, kind of ducked in front of us and disappeared.
Excellent.
What about
Excellent.
Fitzhugh Sound, I
Fitzhugh
think.
Sound, yep.
And Mr. Bunzel, what are your coordinates?
I am in beautiful Anacortes, Washington, right above the Guaymas Channel. And it's a gorgeous evening out there. And I'm already seeing plenty of boats headed out to the San Juan Islands for the holiday weekend.
And I understand that's some natural light on your beautiful face.
That is, it's the sun. I'm not using my little ring light. Don't need it for this spot.
Excellent. And you had a busy weekend, I bet, given that the Anacortes Boat and Yacht Spring Sale was going on. What happened this past weekend?
Well, it was really busy in town. I mean, there's so much of a feeling of people wanting to get out, and boy, they came to Anacortes. The docks were full. There were some 70 different boats you could take a look at. Everything from about an 80 that our friend Dan Wood brought to show people, and naturally he would take offers on it if he wanted, but all kinds of other boats. And it was really pretty interesting, all different price points, and a lot of fun. It was good also to see our friends in the industry who, we didn't obviously have a January boat show, and they were there. And it was great to get together.
And there were about 3,500 people that showed up, socially distanced. Did you see a lot of masks, Mark?
With the recent announcements about outdoor events, and if you're vaccinated, you don't necessarily, it was hard for most people to understand, do I wear a mask or do I not? And that seems to be the mode we're in. If people are out in the grocery store, some places are requiring it. Our local West Marine store has a big sign that if you're vaccinated, your mask is not required. So it floats from place to place. Landons, what are you seeing in Alaska? A lot of masks or not?
In Alaska, it's a real mixed bag up here, and it's about 50-50. And that's part of that is part of it is the Southeast Alaska flare and the independence of Southeast Alaska. And part of it is they have low numbers up here, except for Ketchikan right now. They have a small spike going on right now in COVID. And but other than that, you go to the grocery store and there's still signs that say mask required, but about a quarter of the people are not using masks. On the street, you don't see a mask very much. In the government offices, you see masks. So it's a mixed bag right now.
Excellent. Yeah, it's about the same in the Seattle area as well, and not a lot of masks outside, but each business is different. So yeah, interesting.
Well, this is going to be quite a weekend, being a holiday weekend. And I did talk to Roche Harbor today, and they're no longer taking reservations, but you can still, if they have space, they'll try to get you in. But they're expecting a very busy weekend, and I think a lot of people are going to be out on their boats.
Well, Mark, since I last saw you, actually had the good opportunity to fly up to Roche Harbor I had a trip come together that might surprise you, but yeah, I had a trip come together on Friday to fly up there on Kenmore Air to deliver a speech on the change to the chartering. So there was the
That's
work that
fantastic.
it was how the other half lives, Mark. You would appreciate that. So I showed up at the airport at 8 o'clock thinking that I was going to have to run through all sorts of rigmarole as when you get on an airplane. There was not a soul to be found in the lobby. So I'm like, this seems something out of a zombie apocalypse, but waited around and checked in. They never asked for my identification mark. They didn't have to run a background check on me. Thankfully, I'm kidding, but no, it was bizarre. I just said my name and got on the plane, and with 6 other people, we flipped to Roche, and we're back by 1:30, and saw Troy and Kevin, and it was a real fun scene. I saw Greg Allen of S3, all of our old friends.
It's a great way to travel, isn't it?
It was,
Did you-
yeah.
Did you see any whales? I've seen whales from a Kenmore Air flight, and the pilot actually is nice enough to do a circle around the whales while you look down on them. Did you see any?
I didn't, Mark. No, I didn't, but I could see where that would make a lot of sense. We flew into Friday Harbor. We landed at 10:06. Let's see, we landed at 10, and we showed up at Roche Harbor at like 10:30 and got on stage and got off stage, and we're back flying at the 1 o'clock flight out and was back in the
Boy,
office by 2:30.
You're
Yeah,
a real celebrity.
jet setter. Well, you know, they
yeah.
had that pound of green M&Ms that's part of my contract, which I really appreciated. So they really went
good.
the extra mile for me. So
Good.
so that was a
good.
real highlight. A couple other issues, and I'm going to keep it short, Lorena. You'll appreciate that because I know we've got a busy program. But Harbor Patrol in Seattle area, there was a meeting this past week on that subject. I was surprised to find there are only 14 officers that work on Harbor Patrol, and they usually like to staff up to about 28. So the city of Seattle is looking to cut funding on the police force, and that would include Harbor Patrol. So that's an issue that I'm watching closely. And then another issue is this wake surfing issue in Snohomish County. Continue to work on that. I've got a meeting coming up with the Snohomish County Council member to help him better understand our recreational boating industry. And I'll keep you all tabs on that emerging issue. There's also Lake Sutherland and Clallam counties looking to regulate wake surfing for property owners. So never a dull moment for sure. So yeah, that is my neat and tidy update. Lorraine, I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right. Yes, we have several updates, starting with speaking of travel. You probably heard Seattle-based Alaska cruise ships are going to resume coming up to Alaska in late July. And the law that required foreign flagged ships sailing to Alaska to stop in Canada has been waived and signed into law by President Biden. And a reminder for those cruising through BC waters or BC boaters, a reminder to stay 400 meters, approximately a quarter mile from southern resident killer whales. And this ruling has now been applied to Howe Sound and Barclay Sound, including Alberni Inlet. So that's new. It's effective June 1, and you can check out the news on waggonerguide.com regarding that. And then, of course, we know U.S.-Canada border closure is extended another month to June 21st. You can still use the pass-through option and the transit-through option with strict guidelines, which we'll mention a little bit later. And BC boaters should note that not all marine parks are open. And for example, Codville Lagoon is still closed. And for a list of BC marine parks, you can go to our update table at waggonerguide.com and check out all the marine parks. Should also note that Lizzie Cove near Shearwater remains closed for 2021. Also, through some research, we've noticed that more BC marinas are now requiring proof of liability insurance. So BC boaters, be sure and bring your documentation regarding liability insurance.
And we see that quite often as 2 million that they want to see proof of insurance on that. And I think we're up to at least three or four marinas that we found that say that they want evidence of insurance. And that's for guest boaters as well as permanent moorage. What'd you have?
And then I guess BC is starting their phase to reopen for BC residents, reopening with different COVID restrictions. And Leonard has a slide here regarding that.
Yes, this is just the 4-phase opening. This is a summary of their 4-phase opening. Probably the key one right now is phase one that they're in right now. Pretty much extends the travel restrictions that have been in place up through May 25th. So all of May they had the travel restrictions, and they've been extended now, and that goes to at least June 15th. And go online to view this. Just go online and look for BC Restart 4-phase plan, and this will pop up. There's a more lengthy, detailed description of it if you do that search as well. But they've got this reopening plan, and they've got some aggressive dates on it, and quite a bit of aggressive vaccination that they're looking to do in the next few months.
So Leonard, I looked at this chart and I got to the phase 3, July 1st, and saw that it said Canada recreational travel. And if you don't know the answer, I'll look tomorrow, but what does that mean? Does that mean Canadians can do recreational boating travel?
The Canadians, right, throughout, because right now they have this restriction that they can't even move between different the 4 health zone areas of BC right now. And I think what this means is that they're opening that up now, and you can travel. Also, Ontario apparently is not moving out of travel restrictions right now as well, so that's more restrictive there. And there's some intra-province travel that's restricted right now, and that presumably this will open up somewhere in July.
So for everybody who's watching, because we still get several phone calls a day, we have no idea when the Canadian border will open. And we hear rumors all the time, and we hear end of August, into September, but we actually have no idea. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
To say. Yeah.
Well said. And I actually had a new issue pop up, if I may. If you're in Alaska right now, in Ketchikan, for example, Landons, and you have a cruising license with a foreign flag, and that license expires, typically you can go into Canada for a foreign port to refresh your cruising license to clear back in then. But the Ketchikan CBP is requiring that you actually go to Mexico, Mark, as a foreign port to then spend 15 days to then go back to Alaska if you want to stay in Alaska. So that is a new issue for me within the last week. So I will keep you all abreast. I've got a meeting with Senator Sullivan out of Alaska with his legislative director coming up as we try to explain that boating means business, and why would you want to not have those vessels moored in your state, and we can do the same for cruising for the cruise ships. So we're looking at some exemptions, but yeah, we're sure looking for an easier solution than having to go to Mexico to clear back in and go back to Alaska. So stay tuned there. I've seen it all, right?
I'm glad you're on it for us, Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. And then we've noticed ELCI, or GFCI as it's called, is appearing more and more at various marinas. Did you want to talk more about that?
Right here we're at Bar Harbor in Ketchikan, and they've added some more, or they've upgraded the power on float 10 now and float 11, and they have plans to upgrade yet another one over the coming year here. So more and more, not only here in Alaska, but also Washington and also BC, we're starting to see this ELCI, or ground fault protected shore power. We're seeing that more and more. So if you haven't addressed that topic and made sure that your boat is compatible with that, please do that as soon as you can.
And we have some updates for Ketchikan. If you're a boater that's passing through BC waters and arriving in Ketchikan, Ketchikan harbors, they prefer that you use the online pre-registration in advance of your arrival. It's not a reservation, but it helps quicken your check-in because they'll have all the information about you and your boat. Ketchikan reported that they've had more boats in 1 month than they had all last year. So, and Customs also said they've been very busy. They've cleared 6 to 8 boats every day. So definitely this is the time that boaters are coming to Southeast Alaska.
And here in Ketchikan, this is an update from, it'll go into the update table under something that's new and different from the 2021 Waggoner Guide. Thank you. And so here in Ketchikan, in the Waggoner Guide in 2021, we document that there's a a grocery store on the south end down near Thomas Basin, and that grocery store was wiped out by a landslide over the winter, and they rebuilt it, but it's up north now. It's actually north of the harbor master's office. And then fueling, we show that there's two different, you can Petro Marine or Crowley, and Crowley is no longer here. The Petro Marine has bought out Crowley, and there's exactly 2 stations instead of 3 stations to get fuel right now. One of them's right downtown near the Coast Guard station, and the other one is up near the ferry terminal over to the airport.
And as far as shopping, most of the locally owned shops are open. The jewelry shops are closed, however, most of them, since they're not locally owned. Some of the museums are open or temporarily closed and will be open later this season. The Totem Bite State Park is open, but Saxman Village is still closed right now. There was a recent incident of COVID numbers, so some of these things, again, will be opening later. As we mentioned earlier, masks were worn in grocery stores, in the harbor office, and in some shops. The native villages in Southeast Alaska, some are open with restrictions while others are closed. Metlakatla, Alaska, they ask that you call ahead 5 days in advance and come with a negative COVID test or proof of vaccination. The space is limited at Metlakatla. In the village of Kasan, it's closed and the tours are suspended until next year, 2022. However, boaters may tie up at the dock, and they just ask that you don't walk into the village. And it is a government dock, so there's no charge to tie up there.
So wanted to run down, we did the transit through obviously, and wanted to kind of run down what that transit through looked like. And we get there. So this was our plan. Just a reminder that if you're doing this, you want to have a plan put together, a well-documented plan, and have that ready to share that with the CBSA officer when you're clearing through. And so this was our plan. We had planned May 10th through the 21st. We had planned to have 12 days. We built in 2 days of weather delay, and we had 1 planned fuel stop. It was a crew of 2, and we were built it around an idea of 50 to 60 nautical miles per day was what we planning to do. This was the document. This is what we handed over to the CBSA agent to summarize what we were doing. And then if you look down at the bottom, we had some information that they want to see: the fuel capacity, what the fuel that would be needed for our trip, and how much water, how much food, what our cruising speed is, and they wanted our MMSI number so they can follow us on AIS. And then right at the bottom here, I can't quite see it with the bottom, but there's the Arrive Can receipt number. So that's the Public Health Authority. When you check in with them, it gives you a receipt number, and they want to see that. This was the visual of our plan. Our goal was to make this line as straight as possible. Again, the guidelines are direct and expeditious. So we wanted to make the days as much as we could, as many miles as possible. And then again, a straight line is what we were looking for on this track. And what we actually did, we completed it in 11 days. We probably could have done it in 10. We were on Dundas Island, right in just on the south side of Dixon Entrance the last night. And we had time. We probably could have gone up to Foggy Bay. We were looking for a cell phone connection, but that didn't work. Here's the total mileage, and it was about 91 hours of time. And this was our average speed. We didn't use the weather delays, and we had 2 anchorage spots that we had planned to anchor in, and it just didn't turn out right. One of them was too deep, and we couldn't get a hold on it, so we had to move to a different one. We did not have to call in, or we did not call in with our deviations when we changed different anchorages. But when we did leave, so on the bottom of the whole thing, or at the end of the whole thing, we did report into the telephone reporting center. We left the AIS transmit on during the entire trip. We had no stops or encounters with the RCMP police people. Nobody stopped us and questioned anything. We saw, Lorena says there were 5 Canadian Coast Guard vessels that we passed or passed us. And we only had one VHF kind of on channel 16. There was some less than complimentary comment or comment about U.S. boats, but actually Lorena came
Yeah.
back and addressed the topic.
Yeah, I heard, he was out on the bow and I heard someone say, BC boaters say, what's with all the American boats? That seems inconsiderate. And I simply said, there's a process to pass through and American boats are being approved by CBSA or, cleared. And not too much later, there was an announcement on the weather station about the fact that boats can pass through, no anchoring allowed. But again, that's the pass through process, not the transit through. So I think BC boaters are just not informed or aware that there's a transit through process.
So this is our recommendations about if you're planning to do this. And as Lorena pointed out, there's about, that we heard from Customs, there's about 6 to 8 boats that are coming in each day right now. And when we were coming up, indeed, on AIS, we could see about 3 or 4 ahead of us and about 2 or 3 behind us. It was a conga line of U.S. boats all headed along this straight line. And compliments to all of the U.S. boaters that are out there. They were all just marching along as fast as they could on a direct line. So everybody's doing a good job on this one. The resources, and want to talk a little bit about the courtesy part about this. This is BC this is a privilege for us to be able to do this. Last season, you had to evidence that you lived in Alaska in order to get through. And this year, BC has opened that up and they're letting recreational boaters go through. And it's a privilege. So make sure you're honoring that and do the right thing. Make sure you stay on the boat. It's hard not to sometimes, but it's a beautiful country and you'd love to stop and tour, but just keep going. There, for fuel stops, we stopped in Port McNeill. We anchored out on Port McNeill in the bay that we could have tied up at the dock, but we just felt that was antagonizing things because there was only one other boat on the dock, and our American flag, which was flying the whole time, might have attracted a little bit too much attention. So we anchored out and then came in for fuel the next morning and then continued on. Fuel options that might be good are Blind Channel, Port McNeill, and then Port Hardy are good ones on the way up as well. Wear a mask whenever you stop anywhere, whenever you're pulling in. I was expecting that we were going to have some problems with our boat name, and surprisingly, we did not. This is a boat name that we picked a long time ago, and it turns out to be a boat name that was named after the manufacturer of our boat, DeFever. But in today's times, I was fully expecting that somebody at CBSA was going to be going, okay, is this a joke?
Do you really have a fever? No.
But we didn't have any comment on that one.
We passed.
So we passed, yeah.
So back to Washington State waters. They're wonderful places to cruise here in Washington State. And I know boaters appreciate it when boating facilities are improved and new sites are acquired. And all that's made possible in part by grant monies available through RCO, the Recreation Conservation Office in the state of Washington. And when state and local agencies and port districts apply for a grant, they're assigned a grant manager to help them through the process. And we really appreciate having 2 grant managers with us this evening, Karl Jacobs and Allison. And I would like to introduce them. They're going to walk us through the boating grant programs and share some of the examples of projects that have benefited us as boaters. Karl, and we'll start with Karl. He joined RCO in 2009 and is a senior outdoor grants manager. He manages a portfolio of grants and assists with policy and procedure development. Before coming to RCO, Karl negotiated commercial real estate leases and worked on a variety of real estate transactions for Washington State parks. He earned a master's degree in public administration and grew up in Western Washington. And Allison joined RCO in 2018 as an outdoor grants manager. She has her master's degree in public administration. And before joining RCO team, Allison spent 10 years in Colorado working at various nonprofit organizations. And she ran a grant program there in Colorado. And Allison grew up in Washington and considers Spokane and Olympia to be her hometowns. So,
How does it feel to be giving away money for the government? This is a great job.
Pretty great. We're very lucky.
This is a great job. All right, are you ready for us to get
Let's rock and roll,
started?
Karl. Yeah,
Okay.
let's get it on.
Tell us all about how you give away money.
We will. We got lots to give away. So here we will tell you all about it. I'm gonna share.
Mark, did you know that boaters founded this recreation conservation office?
No, I didn't. I know
I don't
about
wanna
the
steal-
voters
I don't want to
that
steal Karl's
founded
thunder
it
here.
for Susha.
Yeah, 1964 Citizens Initiative process, Mark, came together, boaters and outdoor enthusiasts, and we'll take credit for it because it's our show, darn it. But yeah, without us, Karl wouldn't be with us this evening, nor would Allison. So yeah, I'll hand it back to you, Karl. Sorry.
No worries. Thanks, Allison. You're actually gonna go ahead and start. So
Yeah. So thank you so much again for having both myself and Karl this evening to join you for your webcast. And so, as the introduction mentioned, we're both grants managers for the Recreation and Conservation Office. We're a small state agency. And yes, we do a lot of grant making throughout the state. And so we are going to just kind of cover more of a focus on our boating program, since that would be of interest to you. And we will dive into two programs in particular. So I will kind of cover the first part of the presentation, and then Karl will jump in at the end. So next slide, Karl. All right. So the Recreation and Conservation Office, we manage over 40 different grant programs or categories that are divided into 3 major buckets. And so we have the outdoor recreation, habitat conservation, and salmon recovery. So we do a lot under our umbrella. So we do everything from, there's shooting ranges, parks, trails, the acquisition of land for conservation purposes, removal of fish passage barriers. So all across our state, we're doing a lot of different things through these grant programs. Next slide. And so, as Peter mentioned, we were started in 1964 through Voters Initiative, and that was a key piece of the boating facilities program, which is what kind of got us up and running. And so boating projects are eligible in 5 major grant programs, and there are 2 directly that benefit boaters. And so we'll focus on those today. We also have what's called the Aquatic Lands Enhancement Account, Land and Water Conservation Fund, and a few different categories underneath the Washington Wildlife and Recreation Program. So if you're ever interested, you can always visit our website. We have a lot of information there, but we will focus on these 2 boating programs this evening. And I want to note that for our programs, it is a competitive application process. And so there's individual evaluation committees that review all the grants. And we do have staff that works directly with applicants throughout the process, helping them through from application all the way through completion, as well as compliance afterwards. So we really do work to work with the sponsors throughout the entire process. Next slide. So the program that I will focus on is boating facilities program. So this is for motorized recreational boating activities. And so oftentimes what this program will fund is boat launches, boarding floats, breakwaters, transient moorage, and then upland support amenities like restrooms, parking, and laundry facilities. And while it's not a requirement, there is a preference for serving trailable boats. And it's important that the facilities, it's for transient moorage, so no more than a 14-day maximum stay. Next slide. And so as people are applying for our programs, there are some subtypes. And so our funds can be used to acquire properties, so for acquisition or for development and renovation. We also have grants for planning and permitting to get the ball rolling before developing a project, and then also combinations of those. And eligible applicants can be cities, towns, counties, Native American tribes, special districts, and then we do have a category for state agencies. Next slide. And as with many of our other programs, we do require a match component. So for this category, it's 25% match for local and tribes, and no match required for state agencies. And we do have grant limits. And so for local agencies, they can request up to $1 million for acquisition, development, or combination, or $200,000 or 20% of construction costs for those planning projects, and then no limit for state agencies. Next slide. So we thought it would be interesting just to kind of show you a few projects that have happened over the years. These are all kind of throughout the last couple grant rounds. And so just to give you an idea of typical projects from across our state. So this is Port of Willapa Harbor's Tokeland Marina. So we have the before and after picture. They applied for a grant for just over $800,000, and they replaced their moorage, their restrooms, parking. We did a picnic area for the upland amenities. Next slide. And then Port of Grays Harbor, their 28th Street launch. So this was actually 2 RCO grants over the period of 4 years. The port provided match to replace the ramps and both floats and adding a restroom. They also paved the parking area. Next slide. And then this is Port of Kennewick. So they repaved the parking area. As you can see, this nice visual shows you kind of the amenities that they changed. They added a new restroom and repaved the launch ramps, including new boarding floats. Next slide.
I think there's a microbrewery at the Port of Kennewick, Mark.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, I'll have to stop in.
And then the Port of Bellingham, their Fairhaven launch. And so this was a 2014 project to replace floats and piles. And then the inset photo is just a reminder that we do offer the planning grants. So those are for permit applications, design work, pre-construction activities, consultation with local tribes is needed. And so especially Army Corps permitting and things like that can take a lot of time. So these planning grants can be really helpful in getting the ball rolling and getting everything ready to go. And I wanted to note that this site also came in for 2020 funding for a non-motorized boat launch at the same site. So out of view of this picture, but they came through one of our other funding sources, the Aquatic Lands Enhancement Account. So just to give you an idea of multiple funding sources in the same area. Next slide. And then the Port of Port Townsend. This is another before and after to show you how they added a new ramp and floats using the boating facilities program funding. Next slide. All right, so one project we wanted to specifically highlight for you for the boating facilities program is the Lake Bay Marina.
I've heard of this one.
Because of your group's involvement.
We're
excited.
Yeah, we need the fanfare. We did like the fireworks display here. Yes,
we
we talked about
fireworks
this.
And drum rolls.
That's right.
So I know that you have a special interest in this project, so I wanted to give you an update on the status and provide some of the information that was presented both to our evaluators and our board recently. So This project was in our 2020 application cycle, as you know. It's the combination acquisition and planning grant. And so it was sponsored by the Department of Natural Resources, partnering with the Recreational Boating Association of Washington to preserve this historic site. Next slide. And so what was included in this proposal was the acquisition of the upland and tideland property associated with Lake Bay Marina. And so the parcels are shown there, and the grant request was just over $1.7 million. Next slide. And so as it went through our ranking evaluation, it was ranked #1 in our state agency preliminary ranked list. So very good job. It must have been really done well in the application. So #1 out of 11. And this went to our board for a preliminary approval on April 27th. And so this was featured as the #1 ranked project, and the overview of the project was shared with our board with lots of pictures and information. Next slide. So now that we have the legislature has completed their process and we have the budgets are ready to go, we will be awarding grants on June 30th at our next Recreation and Conservation Funding Board meeting. So that's when the formal announcements will be made about the grants that are coming out this round. And so we'll be able to issue agreements starting July 1st.
So
Next
Allison, I don't mean to be too optimistic, but if Lake Bay was ranked #1, that to me sounds like there's a pretty good chance that they may be selected. I don't want to put you on the spot. I know you can't respond to that, but to our viewing audience, I think this is going to be a win that we all participated in. I hope so. And
Yes,
we're looking forward to that announcement.
Yes, yeah, the formal announcement happens June 30th, but yes, I'd say this program or this project was very successful. So if you go to the next slide, Karl. So I just wanted to mention, so as I think Peter mentioned earlier, so we do have grants managers that are assigned to each project. So I think Dan Hawes is our project manager for this site. And so he'll be working closely with the contacts to move forward throughout the timeline of this project. And so he can also offer ideas for any future development, including other RCO grants. And so that leads me to the boating infrastructure grants. That is our other grant program that Karl is going to talk about right now.
Great, thanks, Allison. So yeah, so we have the two programs Allison mentioned are our primary two boating programs for boating facilities projects. And this one is a federally funded program, Boating Infrastructure Grant, or BIG or BIG. And this program supports transient recreational vessels that are 26 feet and longer. So it's aptly named BIG for the big boats. This can include boarding floats, breakwaters, transient moorage, as well as upland support amenities. Transient in this program is defined as a 15-day maximum stay. It is important to note that launch facilities are specifically excluded in this grant program, but that is a common project in BFP that Allison just talked about. Eligible applicants include state and local agencies, tribes, special purpose districts, nonprofits, as well as private marina operators. And that is unique to this program. That's pretty unusual. And so long as a private marina owns and operates a facility or a portion of their facility that's open and available to the public for these eligible vessels, they are actually eligible to receive grants. And we have funded a handful of BIG grants with private marina operators. Project types are limited. It's primarily development or renovation. We can also fund some, information or education grants. We occasionally get some of those, but mostly we're doing new development or renovation. The match required in this program is 25%. And the program is split into 2 tiers for smaller and larger projects. So tier 1, the smaller projects compete just within Washington state against other tier 1 projects. And then there's a tier 2 for bigger, more expensive projects, and those actually compete nationally. So a few examples of what we've funded here in Washington include jetty replacement and utility upgrades. Lots of guest moorage, primarily saltwater, but also on freshwater. Support facilities such as breakwaters, restrooms, fuel floats, and laundry facilities. And then one important consideration is designing to be fully accessible for everyone, regardless of ability or limitation. So our agency has a strong commitment to making developed sites open and accessible to the greatest extent possible. And we actually encourage our applicants to not only meet minimum access requirements, but to exceed them and really try to make the whole project accessible and usable by everyone. Our grants come with a long-term obligation to keep the site open and available to the public. In some cases, that is in perpetuity or forever. And in others, if you're on a leased site, it might just be for 25 years. And then in the BIG program, the long-term obligation is tied to the useful life of whatever facility is developed. So the process from application through project selection all the way to grant award takes a long time. It's about a year-long process. So it's really important to plan ahead if you're thinking about coming in and going after one of our grants. For boating facilities program, we accept applications in even-numbered years and award grants the following year. So our next opportunity is going to be next year, 2022, for new applications. Right now, we're at the tail end of our current cycle where we're just getting ready. It's our odd-numbered year. We're just getting ready to fund the projects, like Allison just mentioned with Lake Bay. And in BIG, we accept applications every year. And we just recently passed our application deadline for this year. So the next opportunity is going to be spring of 2022. Our grants are typically awarded for a 2 to 3 year term. And all of our grants are managed on a reimbursement basis. So finally, we wanted to share our total investment here in Washington State. And this is pretty impressive, I think. So BFP, as Peter helped describe in a little bit ago, this was our very first program. So right from the inception of our agency back and started funding projects in 1966. BIG came around in the late 90s, and our first grant was 2001. But as you can see, the impact has been huge, very, very significant. So a total between the two programs, almost $283 million. BFP projects are located almost in the entire state, in 37 of our 39 counties. And BIG funded projects in 13 different counties. So
Karl,
that's just kind of fun to share.
Can you talk about how you get, where you get the money from, where that comes from for the BFP program?
Yeah. So that great question. This is one of our user pay, user benefit programs. This is really nice. We have a couple of those programs, and I love it because the money that the users are paying comes right back to benefit you. And so what it is, it's a small sliver of the gasoline tax that isn't, we're buying gas mostly for our vehicles, and that money goes back into highways, but there's some percentage of the gas that gets put into our boats. And there's a calculation that's done that's, I don't exactly know what it is, probably kind of complicated, but they calculate, and there's a refund amount that gets dropped into this pot for boating facilities. They give that to us every other year to distribute. So that's,
Yeah, it used to be more complicated than that. It's just 1% of fuel sales goes into the boating facilities program. There used to be a lot of like
a different, okay.
Stokes theorem kind of calculations, but now it's just 1%. I don't even know what Stokes theorem is, Allison, but I threw that out there because I think it's hard.
Do we know
Sounds
if it's
good.
all spent, or do they not have enough qualified projects to place grants with?
Historically, we have spent all the money, and there have been projects left on the list that we have not been able to get to. So there's more demand than we have money. This year, we're really close to funding almost every project. We just didn't get quite as many applications as we usually do. So on the state side, I think we're actually going to end up funding all those projects, maybe not the last one. And then on the local side, I think we're going to hit eight or nine out of the 11. But usually there's a bigger group sort of at the bottom of the ranked list that unfortunately we just don't have quite enough money for. But we're able to, it's nice. We're able to get the money out the door and get it spent. So it's not sitting around waiting for the legislature to sweep it up and try to do something else with it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. All right, so that's all we have for you. We're happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Karl,
Whatever you
it's such an incredible idea, Karl, given that it started by citizen and outdoor enthusiast boaters. Has this been replicated in any other states? Are other states tapping into this wisdom?
Boy, good question. I honestly don't know, but yeah, you're right. It was a citizens initiative in the mid 60s that basically created us and created this fund, and it has expanded since then because, all those other grant programs Allison mentioned. I don't know about other states. I think there's certainly other states that run grant programs and fund outdoor recreation and that sort of thing. My understanding is we're fairly unique in our little agency here, the Recreation Conservation Office, that we're solely dedicated. This is just all we do, one-stop shopping to come and get money. We run the process. A lot of states, it's run through their state park agency or maybe like a commerce agency for grants.
And Karl, if a community's grant is not accepted one year, do you encourage them to carry that over and reapply in the next cycle?
Yeah, we do. You're not penalized at all. If you don't score well one grant round, you're welcome to come back next time. And we encourage that, and that happens a lot. So long as if the project is still a priority for that particular community, city, county, park district, whatever, we encourage folks to do that. And often they score better because, you learn something. You go through the grant application process the first time, and we can actually tell you, we have all the rankings and the individual scores on individual criteria. So we can say, here's where you did well, and here's the criteria that you didn't score so well on, so you can beef up your application next time.
Karl or Allison, do you want to talk about some of the areas that are scored, like need, site suitability, urgency, etc.? And I think the better that folks can answer all of those criteria, the higher they will score in the evaluation.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, so I was just going to open our grant manual. At the end of our grant manual, we have all the criteria. And
I actually have my list left over.
Great.
I had the privilege of serving on the Boating Programs Advisory Committee, and it was a joy to see all the different projects, and there were so many worth providing funds for. It was really hard to score, but the better presentations and the better they answered the criteria certainly resulted in a higher score. And the list I have left over is need, site suitability, urgency, project design, planning success and engineering, cost benefit, environmental stewardship, readiness, and some others. proximity to people and growth and so forth. But those are some of the areas they're scored on.
I always liked, I remember the criteria, Lorena, during my tour, it was bang for the buck.
Yes.
That was always one of my favorite criteria.
Yeah, cost benefit.
That's right.
Well, one of our other favorite programs that I always like to point out, and Karl, I don't know if you or Allison can comment on it, was the acquisition of Susha, and then bringing that into the fold and then turning that over to Washington State Parks. And it's one of the top boating destinations, certainly in the San Juan Islands and for the state of Washington. And we have this program to thank for it.
I wasn't aware that the original acquisition you're saying was an old grant. I was not aware of that.
As I understand it, Arbaugh, it was one of their first major projects like that. And they also were able to raise some RCO money to go through the acquisition of that, and then turned it over, as is their same intention at Lake Bay Marina, to turn that over to state parks to run.
Okay, great.
Can you talk about how you help those who apply for grants? How do you, as grant managers, help them through the process and step them through? Can you give some ideas or experiences with that?
Yeah, I was just going to say that starting communication early is really important, because it gives us the opportunity as grants managers to come on site, even come out to the location and understand what the project is and how our grant programs could be a fit. And then moving forward, we have a good understanding of what it looks like and what the intentions are as we move forward through the process. But usually, even if we're not able to get out there and see it in person, we're able to, via phone or email, kind of talk through looking at the criteria as people start their applications. We can review it. We do have a technical review period for a lot of our grant programs, where it gives us an opportunity as grants managers to review it, as well as the advisory committee to do so as well. And I would note that all of this is public record too. So sometimes I'll recommend to groups that they can look back at previous applications. So in the future, someone might look back at the Lake Bay Marina application because they were a top ranked project. So it's helpful to look back and see, okay, what did people do in the past? How did they frame their application and respond to the criteria? And what did their PowerPoint look like? Just having those pictures that tell the story, and especially when you look at the points possible for the criteria, you really want to be focusing on the ones that have the higher points, and really telling your story of what the need is and how it fits with that criteria. Is there anything else you can think of, Karl?
I mean, that's really it. Our job is to help folks A to Z, the whole process, from getting in the door to whatever gets funded. Then we write the contract and we manage the grant. So we do everything except the evaluation, and that's really the genius of our process. And so Lorena reminded us that she had served on an evaluation committee, and Peter has as well. And so we recruit you folks to volunteer and serve on our committees to help us with the actual scoring. So it's really nice, because then the grant managers, like, our hands are off and you don't have favoritism and that sort of thing. The actual scoring is left up to an independent committee. But essentially, we do everything else. We're here to help with whatever folks need.
Got a specific question for you. Would indoor stacked storage for trailerable boats be qualify for a request for grant?
Indoor stacked storage? Probably not. We primarily do it's all about outdoor recreation. And yeah, we'd have to dig into that a little bit more, but I'm just off the top of my head, I'm thinking probably not for something like that for long, because that'd be like a sort of a long, probably a long-term sort of storage locker kind of situation, maybe. So the support facilities that we fund are generally things that are just going to be open and available to everyone at all times. You know, the restrooms, showers, laundry, parking. We'll do fish cleaning stations.
Karl, I've got a question for you. Can you talk about the SCORP plan? That's another RCO product, and what has stood out to you in that planning process?
Well, I'll have to say I'm not an expert in our SCORP. We do have a woman on staff who's our planning specialist who handles that, and she's actually just starting the process to update the SCORP. But it stands for Statewide Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, and it's every 6 years we will typically do like a user survey to gauge what the interest is. And then there's several major elements of the statewide plan. So there is a specific boating element. There's also a trails element, and then just, general outdoor recreation. Yeah,
it's fun to, whenever you get the chance to hear about what the data that's in there. A couple numbers have always stood out to me from that boating part. Like 13% of all boaters live in urban areas. The average time spent on a boat from that SCORP study is 14 days. Those are some numbers that I have crystallized in my head. I like to talk about when I'm asking buddies some trivia questions. So yeah, no, that's an incredible document. I put it in the chat. I'd encourage everyone to take a look at the SCORP planning document and the boating part in particular. Well, as we wrap up here, any final comments, Karl and Allison?
I have a final question.
Yeah.
So is there on all of these great programs that you do, or projects that you do, is there a nice little plaque out there that gets embedded in the concrete that says this project was funded by?
We do have those, and so that's one of the requirements of our grant funding, is that somewhere on the site there is an acknowledgement sign that has RCO and the program name. And so we do supply those. They're little plaques. They're about this big. And so when you're out at the sites moving forward, you'll probably start seeing them, our RCO signs.
Excellent.
And RCO is everywhere. Green Lake, Gasworks Park, those are RCO funded projects as well. I'm just thinking about the Seattle backyard area of the NMTA office.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, you turn around, you'll see an RCO project. It's incredible.
Yeah, we just please pass on to your group. We as users, we really appreciate this program. It's our tax dollars doing something positive, and the benefits coming right back to something we all have a passion for, and that's boating and recreational facilities. So we appreciate what you all do.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, great.
We love doing it. So
Good.
Quadruple win. Well, Allison, Karl, thank you. Landon's, Mr. Bunzel. Mark, do you have big Memorial Day plans?
I'm going to get out on the boat and probably going to go up to Cypress Island, not too far away. In fact, I'm looking at it as we speak, and enjoy that park, which is one of the great parks in the state, especially for boating. And the weather's supposed to be fantastic on Saturday, tomorrow and Saturday. And I'm looking forward to it. Like others, I'm ready to break out away from home office and the office and get out there and enjoy this beautiful place we live in.
And no doubt about it. And speaking of beautiful places, Landon's, what do you have on your 3-day weekend up in Alaska? Lorena, your audio is out. I'm not hearing it right now.
Yeah,
There you are.
there. Okay. We hope to go around Misty Fjords and check that out.
Awesome. And
Which
Mark,
is a national monument that's up at the bigger level.
Mark, and do we want to pay homage to our sponsor, the Groesbeck Realty Group?
Yes, I met with Jean last week. I'm probably going to stop by her office tomorrow. And they are just doing everything they can, pulling more waterfront properties in. And some of our listeners have been into their office to see what they have available. And they are very pleased with their sponsorship of the show, and they want to continue forward with it, which is great. So thank you, Groesbeck Realty Group. And if you're interested in a waterfront home or a slip, take a look at, talk to Jean and the team, and I think you'll be pleased at what you see.
Excellent. And what's on tap for next week, Mr. Bunzel?
Well, we have Brian
Krantz.
from Inside Passage Yacht Sales, and he's on the board also, isn't he?
That's right. He's an NMTA board member.
An MTA board member. And Brian has been boating and marketing boats in out of Lopez Island for a number of years. And recently, several years ago, he and I coincidentally both took an interest in a boat built in Finland called the Sargo. And he's now the dealer for that boat. And he has a fantastic presentation of going over to the factory in Finland and seeing how they build boats there, and also then going out and cruising in that area before he brought the boat back to the United States. Kind of like BMW, you can take factory delivery in Europe. Well, you can also do that through Brian in Europe with a boat. So this is one of my bucket list items. And look at Leonard. He's ready to
sign me up. I'm there.
So tomorrow we'll see if Leonard, or next week we'll see if Leonard, by the end of the show, is signing a contract for his boat delivered in Finland. And and Brian's just a great guy, good presenter. And the pictures of his kids boating in the North Sea in Europe are just fantastic. And I think there will be more than just Leonard and I who want to sign up for that program. So
yeah, Brian is just a fun person to listen to. The way he can talk about boating, it's a religious experience for him as it is for so many, but to hear him talk about it, he's up there with the best preachers around. So no, it's can spin a yarn. Yep. So that's great. So we've got Memorial. I did a little research on Memorial Day, Mark. I actually didn't know much about Memorial Day. I mean, I knew why we celebrate or commemorated it, but it was started in 1868 on May 30th. It was formerly called Decoration Day. And I was looking at
tied to the end of the Civil War.
It was right at the heart of the Civil War, May 30th, 1868. And there was a lot of, at Arlington Cemetery, a lot of flags were placed, and both Confederate and Union troops' graves were marked for that day. And I looked up how many U.S. heroes we've lost during the wars, which I had not looked up before to prepare for the show. 1.3 million Americans have died during just active wars. So put something in the chat. Yeah, I'm going to put something in the chat. If you want to find out some more info on Memorial Day, PBS has a nice, I'm having a little trouble. Here we go. PBS has a nice website to learn more about Memorial Day coming up on Monday. It's a 3-day weekend. Someone tried to tell me Memorial Day was last Monday, which would have been an odd excuse for me not for missing work last Monday. But I know it's in fact this upcoming Monday. And as we head out tonight, we're going to be playing taps from our friends up at Roche Harbor. So I want to say thank you all for joining. And I want to say thanks, Allison and Karl, and Landon. Stay safe in Alaska. Mark, good to see you. Good to see you this evening. So thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Bye, everyone.
In Roche Harbor, please come and join us for our time-honored celebration. We look forward to sharing this experience with all of the boaters here at Roche Harbor, and have a safe and happy boating season.